Hello and welcome to our Erasmus Plus Youth Exchange podcast, created for the educational purposes of the project Human Rights and Democracy in the Age of Information Warfare. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, today we're honored to have with us Mr. Tomáš Bouška, founder and chairperson of the volunteer civic organization politictivezni.cz. Since 2003, Tomáš has been dedicated to preserving the powerful oral histories of political prisoners who endured forced labor camps in the infamous Jáchymov district during the 1950s. His mission? To bring these untold stories of repression to life for younger generations and the wider public, ensuring their voices are never forgotten. Stay tuned for a compelling conversation. So, our first question is, what gave you the inspiration to create this initiative?
Well, thank you for having me. And let me share that this is now more than 2 decades since I started working on this. I started basically researching the Czechoslovak political prisoners, their stories, their traumatic past within my university studies. This was back in Sweden and Finland, where I studied oral history, and then I moved back to my hometown to Prague, to the Charles University, where I was working on the master's thesis and later on my PhD. And in all these works, I was looking at the so-called Jáchymov political prisoners, that is, political prisoners imprisoned in the Jáchymov district in Western Bohemian, most probably largest Central European Gulag chain. So I was working on these stories and I was just wondering how to spread the word and how to let also other colleagues in the academia know that there is such a research going on. And as I was meeting all kinds of historians, psychologists, sociologists, and other experts from different fields of humanities, I was arriving to a decision that the best way how to communicate these stories would be an online platform, a website. And there we go with my first ideas with sharing this globally, sharing it online. And if I'm not mistaken, this was back in 2008 when I basically purchased the web domain, the web address called politictivezni.cz, and an English mutation of the web, that is politicalprisoners.eu. And I started simply publishing the first stories alongside with my two other friends and colleagues in the field, that is Michal Louč and Klára Pinerova. And with these people, I basically started formulating the goals of our NGO, which was officially founded and registered under the Czech law in 2010.
Actually, I can imagine must have been very hard to find the political prisoners themselves and to get in touch. Can you share with us some of the challenges you faced while collecting those stories and conducting interviews?
Well, I think there has been two major challenges. The first one was to gain the trust of the narrators, that is, to explain in a nice and comprehensive way why an oral history research, that means spoken testimony, should be shared and aired in public. And what is more, why it should be authored by, well, back then, a very young team. I was around my 24, 25 years of age. And when I gained their trust, when I could see that we actually understand each other, it has been quite easy, or definitely easier. And what followed was just the typical snowball effect. And many other narrators followed because they just saw I spoke to their friends and mates from the camps, and it was then rather smooth and easy procedure. As for the second challenge, I can tell the most troublesome feature behind this whole initiative was our time capacities, because the whole NGO and work behind it is done and solely on volunteering basis. So we did it in our free times. We never looked for a job in this platform. We were always acting as volunteers. So when I was done with my academic work, I basically kept the whole initiative as my hobby. And we kept on recording stories. We kept on working on all these different outputs that we assembled throughout the years in the form of different books, documentaries, short films. Eventually, we ended up reconstructing a knowledge trail, a hiking trail in the mountains around the former camps. And, well, as for the most recent projects, and we can still talk about this sometime later, we have obtained a whole house, a former building within the largest Czechoslovak uranium camp, that we are hoping to turn to a community and education center. So all this is solely done on the voluntary basis, which is challenge, especially time-wise.
Tell us, what do you think about the current general awareness in our society regarding the injustices of the former totalitarian regime? Do we tend to forget about it quickly?
Honestly, I don't think so. This is a typical human feature, if I'm not mistaken. People do forget, and that's a natural process. And then there's other people who are trying to slow down this process and who are trying to let people remember and commemorate, especially these traumatic events that happened in the recent past and that were meant to be forgotten. So I believe the current awareness in our society is rather usual. That means there are families, and it always starts with families that do remember about these kind of events rather frequently, and they work on something we can call a public memorial policy. And then there is people who just prefer to forget everything and not to mention it, and they often pretend that it never happened. And I believe this is a very natural process. So the aim of our NGO is obviously to support the, the the commemoration and support the remembering. We are trying to achieve this through different means, as I just mentioned them in my previous answer to your question. But I don't want to really complain about the general awareness. There is a rising tendency, I believe, in the schools to open up these topics. Obviously, not in all schools and not everywhere, not in all the regions of the Czech Republic. But hey, I can't complain. It's just all up to us, up to even our own initiative. If we were only able to communicate it better, faster, more effectively, we can do so. There is no official, let's say, state order, a law, somebody who would be forbidding us to continue our activities, which is definitely not the case in many other countries around the globe, and they can't talk about their traumatic past. We can. So I believe the current situation is, it's not satisfying. We can always do much better. but it's also far from a horrorsome scenario where like history would be wiped out from our past, which I think is important.
Do you think the stories of these former political prisoners can influence current and future generations? And if so, how?
Well, they definitely can. That's one of the reasons why we are trying to air them and, well, store them, archive them, make them available on our web platform throughout all our events and stuff. So, yes, I believe they can influence the current and future generations. And they also should. I mean, they are very strong and sometimes very heavy stories, and these people who lived through all these traumas, they didn't live for nothing, I believe. There's a lot we can learn from them. And how to achieve this? Well, firstly, by listening and understanding. We need to see the context, the wider reasons why political imprisonment was really possible, how it happened that the state administration was basically creating fake evidences, and they were sending people to camps and prisons for something we do not define as crimes these days. So we need to understand and explain to the younger generations, I believe, how it happened, why it happened, and yeah, see if there is something we can learn from this and how we can maybe identify the evil around us, because there definitely is a lot of it, and there will probably remain a lot of it in the near future as well.
How do you envision this project evolving over the next few years?
Well, as I said, we're working on a community and education center. So we are basically developing a place of memory where we are inviting all the target groups that we work with, that is the schools, the leisure time activities. We're looking at the wider public. We're looking at the families of the prisoners and their relatives. We're looking at experts, historians, and people involved in the research of political injustice. And we believe we should also cross the borders, because there is a large silence between the Czech society and the German society. I mean, it's definitely improving, and it has improved throughout the years, but the place of our interest in Jáchymov, it's a border town with today's Saxony, is almost forgotten. And yet, it's a place of memory in the sense that it was the site of the first three concentration camps of the Nazi Germany that was mining uranium ore there for their own atomic program. And only later, after the war and after the wild expulsion of Sudeten Germans, the site became a key site of interest of the Soviet Russia, and they were able to turn this place and basically a former Nazi terror site to the largest Czechoslovak uranium gulag with some 15 uranium camps around this little medieval town. So I believe this is a place where all our future activities will be concentrated in. We want to root in our initiative, so to speak, physically. We want to turn it to a place of memory, in the sense that we would like to invite people to come over to do the hike with us around the former camps and mines, to share the stories of the political prisoners, meet their families, meet their relatives, and yeah, trigger dialogue about all these issues, which are omnipresent and not only in Jáchymov. So, in the future, we would like to conclude the reconstruction of the building and turn it to a true meeting place. So, the invitation goes to all those of the people that are interested in our work, and we would like to welcome them all on the spot.
We would like to express our heartfelt thanks to Mr. Bouška for his dedication, not only in preserving the stories of former political prisoners, but also for taking time to share his valuable experiences with us. This podcast was created for the educational purposes of the Erasmus Plus Youth Exchange, Human Rights and Democracy in the Age of Information Warfare. Moreover, the association politictivezni.cz is currently working on an initiative involving the building known as Řetízkárna. This building once served as a changing room for prisoners at the Rovnost labor camp near Jáchymov in the 1950s. In 1960s, the camp was closed and demolished, along with the mining area around the Rovnost shaft. In the fall of 2022, the politictivezni.cz association successfully purchased the building with plans to restore it and transform it into a community center dedicated to educating people about the local inhabitants and the traumas of the 20th century. You can find more information by clicking on the link in the description, where you can also support Mr. Bouška and his colleagues in their endeavors through donations. Thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.